Ever since the revelation that we were going back to Raccoon City next year to get acute radiation poisoning, Resident Evil Outbreak has been at the top of my challenge run list, but for obvious reasons I'm physically unable to enjoy a game like a filthy casual anymore, so I needed to find a way to make a playthrough of Outbreak psychologically intolerable. And who better to turn to for that than... The Pokemon Challenge Run community are almost as mentally ill as I am, and the crowning jewel in their Challenge Run crown is something called a Nuzlocke. It basically turns Pallet Town into North Korea, making the game a distressing permadeath nightmare for both you and your indentured gladiators, whilst also randomizing Pokemon Collection to create a wholly unique playthrough. So today we're going to apply that across Outbreak's 2 games as we attempt to complete all 10 levels with the 8 mainline characters, but each of them only has 1 life. If anybody dies attempting a level, they are permanently dead and removed from the roster, leaving us with just 8 chances to escape Raccoon City. But Outbreak was a game that flourished on strategy and teamwork, so to strip back any edge we may have had, we were not only going to be playing on the game's hardest difficulty and on its dedicated single-player mode, but every level and character was going to be chosen at complete random. We can now be sent to anywhere in Raccoon City with any character, and with the additional rules compounding this challenge as a mistake, our chances of survival were left questionable before we'd even started. You could find anything down the right alley in Raccoon City, but take the wrong one and you could find yourself anywhere. Our first destination on this journey of regret takes us to Jay's bar, where the steak is served drier than Ben Shapiro's wife, and having a prescription drug problem is apparently part of the dress code. The first survivor off the roster starts us with Umbrella's chief war criminal turned winter soldier, Yoko Suzuki, who was like pulling a non-holographic holo from your booster pack. It's beyond disappointing. Just like Onion, survivors have layers, and those layers come in the form of character skills, special items, and detailed statistics that govern things like how much health a character has, how fast they can run, and how homophobic they are. Yoko rolls an F on all counts, but every character gets rebalanced in some way, like having an ability to dodge incoming damage, or ways to provide the incoming damage, or even special items that can give characters a niche to excel in specific areas of the game. For Yoko, her rucksack doubles our starting inventory from 4 slots to 8, allowing us to carry double the amount of IBS medication at no extra cost, which was good timing as the general public had just broken into the bar to inquire if they were still serving food. With Henry not having health insurance, we unfortunately have to leave him to die, but this does give us enough time to borrow his keys to unlock the staff door and get us upstairs. Survival horror in Raccoon City often referred to surviving the horror that was US building regulations, which had dictated that not a single other exit could be made here in the event of an emergency, leaving the roof as our only option to make it back down to street level, presumably by just throwing ourselves off of it. To get there, we have to succumb to more ketamine-fueled architecture as we track down a random bottle of whiskey from upstairs to place inside this painting to unlock a desk in the manager's office. You know, I think I'm beginning to understand now why the government bombed this place. With these keys, we can use the forklift truck upstairs to create a makeshift bridge over these shelves and make it to the roof, where the calming sounds of people being eaten alive were drowned out by...
Oh my god!
The murdering murder of murder crows living up here made me feel like we were experiencing drone warfare, but also made me realise that I owed Forrest an apology. I get it now. Declaring the roof a no-fly zone, we can pry this loose fence panel off to create a path over to the adjoining rooftop, which gets us through the apartment block and back down to the street outside Jay's bar. Interrupting the RPD as they began instinctively mowing down unarmed civilians outside Jay's bar, the street had been terraformed into Klendafu, where we immediately have to embrace the ethos that the only good bug is one that I can run away from.
Would you like to know more?
After barricading the road with these cars, the civilian Terminator drags us down into a dead end, forcing us to spend 2 hours running in circles whilst he looked for his keys. Wait a second. This is America. With Ray suffering from an acute medical condition that forced him to dramatically turn and face the camera for no reason at all, we come to the conclusion that the only possible way to handle this situation is to dump 250 gallons of diesel fuel out onto the street and set it on fire. Well, I mean, as plans go, that's probably the worst one I've ever heard, but sure, what could possibly go wrong? Having now made homemade napalm in the street, we jump into the adjoining septic tank to maintain our God-given right of plausible deniability, arriving outside the Apple Inn Hotel moments later to finally be rescued and miraculously survive the first level of the challenge.
Damn! Another barricade. As you can see, there are too many roadblocks. I'm afraid you'll have to get out and continue on foot.
Right, well, you're getting 1 star, mate. Having been driven around a single block and into more danger than we started in, this felt more like stock rotation than a rescue, but whatever it was, the end of the level isn't here. It's actually up the road and through this apartment block where a reunion of former members of the public is taking place on Main Street. With the entire population of Leeds now infected with lead water, the RPD had volunteered to check the pipes by digging up the street. Permanently. But with their 2 business day reaction times, the device is left undetonated, leaving us with 1 final task to finish before we could complete the level. The zombies in this part of town are apparently exclusively made up of tweakers and drug addicts who still have a non-negligible amount of crack cocaine in their system.
Oh my god, look at this guy's actually faster than me. Oh my god!
Ignoring the fact that Yoko went from 100% health to being in palliative care from just 1 bite, she still manages to achieve her dream of committing domestic terrorism as we sail off the street and actually finish the level this time, somehow securing the best possible start to the challenge with the worst possible survivor.
The average human being currently uses 10% of its brain capacity, and though every single experience, every drop of
Get out of my car now!
Where is my destination?
Get out of my car now!
Sir, I'm asking
Get out of my car now! I have the right to tell you when to get out of my car. It's right now!
Looking for a place to relax, take a load off perhaps? Well, then look no further than the Apple Inn Hotel and Resort, where your load can be placed into any one of the hotel's 42 world-famous cuck chairs. The hotel was a blacklight library for the city's sexual deviants, but just like Notre Dame, we now risked losing a piece of Raccoon City history, all because someone had installed a pipe bomb instead of a boiler. Faulty equipment and poor public service, though, wasn't the only thing you'd find inside this level.
That's comforting.
In the same way that you get ants or homeless people inside your bins during the summer, lickers had moved in and, like big naked squatters, had made themselves at home, which, let me tell you, I needed that like I needed a tongue in the face. We begin the level by trying to contact emergency services about the fire, which was like having a conversation with a ghost from Phasmophobia.
Huh? Excuse me. What do you want?
With 2 routes back into the hotel, we opt for the one that doesn't give us the express route back to the lobby, instead heading in through the ground floor to get respiratory failure and reach room 204, where we can begin solving one of the level's major puzzles. Inside 204 is a map of Europe split into a 3x3 grid. Each of the panels correlate to a painting of those same countries found in rooms around the hotel, where a switch could be flipped underneath them to light up the corresponding panel back in 204. Ignoring the obvious design flaw that this would have given anyone staying in 204 an epileptic seizure, if we could turn on all the panels, we'd unlock the safe inside the room, allowing us to collect a key item that we would need for our escape. But on our way down to explore the rooms around the hotel, tragedy strikes. with the tragedy being my shit tier gameplay. My clear skill issues in this game were no excuse. The Nuzlocke rules were clear. Yoko is officially dead and hereby deleted from the roster. Which, I'm gonna be real, is kind of a relief. It was clear that Yoko had been holding me back. Quite literally, considering she runs as fast as my grandmother, but now, with the worst survivor out of the way and the Wheel of Destiny choosing our next survivor, there was no excuse for not making it out of Hellfire alive. In what was some kind of serendipitous piece of destiny, Alyssa Ashcroft, confirmed MILF and absentee mother of RE9's main character Grace, had been brought to Outbreak's hotel level. Perhaps the very same hotel Alyssa was supposedly murdered in. For the law, maybe. For the challenge, God, I hope not. Overall, Alyssa is actually a pretty solid survivor. A kind of hybrid between Columbo and Piers Morgan. Alongside being able to illegally hack your voicemails, her stats come with a marked improvement over her predecessor. Alyssa also comes with a more user-friendly dodge ability and was able to potshot, a skill that allows you to do additional damage with handheld firearms when aiming at a target for a prolonged period of time. Alongside those, her special item makes us the master of unlocking now, giving us the ability to open up certain doors in a level without having to break our collarbone. Quickly making it back up to 204, the RNG this time cuts us a marginal piece of slack by requiring only one change, found down in room 103, which opens up the safe to reveal a mysterious golden key. Helping to deal with some customer complaints en route upstairs to the laundry room, we find the code for the security office, which we can then access by vigorously picking this lock and looping back upstairs to the second floor.
A little more!
Once inside the security office, we can now head through to the north wing of the hotel, where a quick shortcut through this convenient hole in the floor gets us down to room 101, where after quickly dropping off some fresh towels, we can Ocean's 11 the room's private safe by connecting the name of the recently deceased occupant on this invoice to the master list that we'd found next door. Now with both keys in our possession, the gold key opens up the generator room next door, where we can restore power via a switchboard design that borders on criminal negligence, and the silver key, which opens up room 306 to give us the final item we needed to leave this cuckchair nightmare behind. Back downstairs in the security office, hidden behind this bookcase, is a secret door that has outsourced its keyhole to the statue next to it. Placing this red gem inside the suspiciously red gem-sized hole, we gain access to the front lobby, where with power already restored, the emergency ladder can be released, allowing us to finally make a run for the exit.
Smash.
Following Outbreak's consistent formula of ending scenarios by trying to ruin my life, the Queen Liquor, known as the Suspended, blocks our way out, and this is where Outbreak can really punish you. If you're like me and manage your inventory and resources like someone who has genuine mental problems, then you can find yourself arriving at the end of scenario boss fight with nothing left to use. Resource management was a critical gameplay loop of Outbreak, which is why for this challenge I'd been consciously thinking ahead. Alongside having enough shotgun ammo to open every door in a mile radius, I'd also brought a knife as a backup, which when combined with Alyssa's dodge ability created a combo that felt like it bordered on cheating. With the RFD finding us moments later, dreams of a Pulitzer Prize would have to be put on hold as questions were raised. Not only as to why there was a half-naked woman lying dead in the hallway, but also if news reporters in Raccoon City could overcome the odds and stay alive for more than 5 minutes. End of the Road is the final level of the second game, taking us on a race against time to escape Raccoon City before we all get the Pripyat experience. We join David at a local Umbrella Black site who was busy issuing out exit interviews for the remaining Umbrella scientists, but before he can finish, the facility goes into a site-wide lockdown. With David apparently more interested in aura farming than escaping, we begin looking for a way out, but only find that the remaining humans left in the facility were now one place lower in the food chain. In our bid to escape the hunters, the facility is split into two wings, central and east, but a large portion of our opening progress is locked behind keycarded doors. The first one we need can be obtained from a lab worker in Central 3, but to get there we have to unlock a few doors, throw a few bottles of our own urine, and disable the standard issue fit laser grid that apparently comes as standard in every Umbrella facility. With the level 1 keycard now in pocket, it gets us access to all of the connecting hallway doors and into the experimentation room, where Umbrella staff were in the process of nominating themselves for the Darwin Award. Wait. It's always just ultimate life forms? Always has been. The answer to anything around this shithole was apparently to just release untested, untrained bioweapons out into the prod environment that was your local neighborhood. With the same kind of build quality as a Cybertruck, we get about 4 minutes of actual runtime out of Mr. Model Y before he immediately bricks himself over at the East Wing exit.
I told you, there is nothing to...
As Carter began living out the ultimate Umbrella fantasy of being killed by your own bioweapon, Mr. X's fists were now rated E for. Hunted through the lab in what can only be described as the Leon S. Kennedy experience, X also comes with the unique ability to induce a premature heart attack every time he set foot inside a room. Quickly doubling back to the scene of the crime, we can find that Linda's level 2 keycard had slipped out of her pocket, allowing us to access a hidden elevator and escape down into the sewer system below the lab, which, for the most part, didn't seem safe at all. Through the power of reverse osmosis, the tyrant was now inside our walls, forcing us deeper down into the sprawling complex of the old waterway, where we develop chronic arachnophobia and also get lost. Hello? 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 Running around this place like I was the weekend of the Super Bowl, one thing we had stumbled across was Carter's detonator. As some kind of failsafe that smelt like someone had been watching too much of The Boys, Carter had shoved 10 pounds of Semtex up Mr. X's arsehole to detonate in the event of any production problems. Sadly, though, Carter's an idiot, and the bomb switch takes 3 business days to register a signal to the rectum, by which time you'll have already been turned inside out. But even so, after escaping the waterway and finding Linda, we keep hold of the detonator for now as a last resort tyrant insurance policy. With someone using the upstairs toilet, we're purged into what was apparently the only working sewer system in the entire city, where once again, we were asking to be rescued from outside the Apple Inn Hotel. With the RFD managing to save the Cuck Chair Museum, Linda gets 360 no-scoped on the way in by the UBCS, who seem to have a chronic misunderstanding of the orders here. It's aid in the rescue of survivors, not give the survivors AIDS. Having also diligently set up claymores throughout the rest of the level, which we'd now have to hurt locker our way through, it at least meant that if we did make it out of here somehow, I'd probably qualify for one of those parking spots closer to the shops. With my body now the consistency of wet cardboard, we drag Linda's semi-lifeless body through the construction site, using her as our organic minesweeper as we arrive underneath the freeway. Here we find that the panicked families of Raccoon City had, in their desperate attempts to escape, forgotten to take the essentials with them, like their AT-4 disposable anti-tank launcher. With a welcome addition to our endgame firepower, the UBCS civilian murder squad had the absolute audacity to get annoyed that they were also about to be vaporized by the government as well. Yeah, welcome to the party. To escape, Linda's Uber was parked down the road waiting for us, and with only 3 minutes left to reach it, we wasted no time in making the adjoining warehouse wheelchair accessible before realizing, perhaps too late, that we were going to need a second wheelchair.
Oh! Holy shit.
With Mr. X running out of organic material that he could kick down in the sewers, he'd emerged like some kind of reverse Jesus through the massive hole Yoko had made in the road during our first level, to provide us with the final stage of the Leon S. Kennedy experience. He was, however, failing to take into account that I had an inventory that looked like the US defense budget, which also just so happened to be the perfect one for taking down RE endgame bosses.
How is that not a one-shot? Oh wow, I'm legitimately gonna die. That's a one-shot.
In Raccoon City, the life expectancy of news reporters and journalists are about 87% shorter than similar professions in Europe, and similarly, my desk is about 99% more of the way to being broken in half compared to if I'd picked a different career path. Apart from a certain right hand, I don't think in all of RE history there was a rocket launcher that didn't kill an enemy in one hit. This needed to be reported on. Obviously not by Alyssa, who was now dead, but by someone, somewhere. My rocket launcher oversight combined with Mr. X's insta-kill attack had come out of nowhere to destroy Alyssa's run no more than 60 seconds from the end of the level. And I also regret to inform you all, it doesn't get any better from here. Meet George, the chronically overworked, divorced and opioid-addicted doctor of Raccoon City General who was largely known for being able to craft methamphetamine from the privacy of his own inventory. Able to mass-produce an array of healing items using his medicine set and tackle zombies like they were wide receivers, it put George in a great position to overturn what had so far been a supremely average start to the challenge.
Oh my god. I'm dead. And I'm getting teabagged.
At this precise moment in time, my performance suggested that instead of steering us back on track, I was steering us directly into oncoming traffic. With George basically spawn killed, we were instantly down to only 5 survivors left, and a cold chill had begun to set in. Am I washed? Or is this challenge truly going to be what finally induces a cataclysmic stroke that reincarnates my soul into Trisha Paytas' next child? Not just yet. I instead chose to gaslight myself, and by extension you, the viewer, into believing that this was just a survivor issue. So far my free choices haven't been what I would call the Outbreak meta. What we needed was an F1 driver, someone who could truly steer us out of this mess that I had solely created. And oh boy, did we get one. When it came to solo surviving, Cindy was a 9 out of 10. Or if you're from America, that's an October out of September. Not only was her special outfit a gooner's dream, but Cindy's stats are solid with a speciality built around lone wolf gameplay. Her herb case allows us to store 4 full heals with no impact to our main inventory. Her starting item in file 2 is a bandage that prevents the bleed status effect altogether, and her dodge ability is an iframe enjoyer's dream. She was one of 2 candidates I'd identified early on that had the potential to carry us through multiple levels of the challenge, and here on Enter the Road, she was about to steer us out of the ditch I'd driven us into. With Cindy delivering her end of the bargain, I decided to make sure I delivered mine, by just standing around here for 3 minutes. The countdown isn't actually for Raccoon City's imminent local saturation, instead it's just how long we have to make it to the helicopter extract. If we just run that timer down, the chopper leaves without us, and instead the game offers us an alternative exit through this door, taking us up and onto the freeway. Sadly, in a heartbreaking moment halfway up the office stairs, I'm forced to leave Linda behind. It was a blow. Mainly for Linda, but out of principle, I'm not putting my life on the line for someone who works for Umbrella. Okay, we might need to just fill in some blanks quickly here. About 2 minutes after missing the helicopter extract, the chopper drops a massive cargo container that was, according to the manifest, en route to Mr. Kojima's house. Out of this container pours bio-weaponized tentacle hentai that also non-consensually onboards Mr. X into this piece of nightmare fuel that was now the final boss of the game. The fight against Nix can be unforgiving. Gamers would often need several attempts to master this fight, which I'm sad to say is a luxury we didn't have. But luckily for us, I have the power of foresight, which directly counters the power of foreshadowing. In the same way that Taco Bell's Crunchy Taco Supreme explodes out of your arsehole, Mr. X's rear-loaded Semtex was going to have the same effect on Nix. Using the bomb switch we'd saved from the sewers, the detonation blows Mr. X up from the inside, and by association, Nix, whose exposed central core can now be probed with our rocket launcher, destroying the creature for good and turning one of the most overwhelming boss fights in the game into just 3 simple steps. Morbidly curious at what had happened to Linda, we head over to the office block stairwell, only to find that she was in fact still alive. Holy shit, this is awkward. With the success of the level overwritten by the most uncomfortable truck ride ever, Cindy had officially steered us back to safety. But in this challenge, that feeling of safety is rarely ever permanent. Desperate Times inadvertently gives us home court advantage as we're sent back to everybody's favourite police station, where the surviving officers are trying to formulate a plan to escape that didn't involve being cut in half. The plan revolves around us finding 5 gem plates hidden throughout the precinct that would open up a passageway inside the main hall's fountain, hopefully leading you to somewhere useful before you suffocate to death. As scenarios go, Desperate Times is a pretty linear one. There's not a huge amount of the precinct to cover in order to find the 5 plates, but that simplicity is somewhat complicated by one particular factor.
Caution. Warning. Caution. Warning.
After promising to cut payroll by 50%, Chief Irons had decided that the best way to achieve that was to straight up fucking gas anybody who forgot their pass. By rigging the entire station with nerve gas, which cycles through different areas of the precinct on a rolling timer, aside from turning the room a lovely shade of piss, the gas does decay our health over time, but for the most part, it was negligible. What wasn't negligible though was the impact it had on our virus gauge. We can temporarily disable the gas's effect with healing items or using a neutralizing canister to draw out the gas, as well as all of the oxygen in the room, but the damage to our infection rate was permanent, and the closer we got to 100%, the closer we got to becoming permanently itchy and tasty. So starting up on the East Wing waiting room, there's a gem plate in this safe, but accessing it solo requires a convoluted set of steps that involve us pushing this box through to the other side of the room to reach the key on this locker, a perilous return journey back only to realize you'd forgotten to push the crate back through in order to reach the safe.
Oh, poo!
Now, having contracted bronchitis, we could finally collect our first plate, passing the remaining police officers as they attempt to help distressed members of the public, and placing it inside the statue in the main hall. In the East Wing, we can also find the onyx plate in the interrogation room, the amethyst plate in the autopsy room in the basement, and the emerald plate inside the kennels. The sapphire plate, though, requires us to grease a few palms in order to collect it, specifically the palm of G adult incubator and reporter of the news, Ben Italians. Ben was a familiar face, at least it was familiar for now, but he was also the one in possession of the final plate we needed, and to get it, a trade offer needed to be fulfilled. During his constitutionally unconstitutional arrest, Ben had been in possession of an account book detailing how much money Irons had spent on cam girls in the last year, which, if rumors are to be believed, is an astronomical amount of money. The file is locked away in Marvin's office, which can be unlocked using this code we find in the waiting room and then traded with Ben for the final plate we needed. With the sapphire plate completing the fountain puzzle, we send Rita down into the Nutty Putty in the hopes that she wasn't immediately crushed to death and could get help before we involuntarily joined the Raccoon City casualty figures. Luckily, Rita does make it and says she'll be there in about 10 minutes for extraction. But for us, there's no time to waste. We have only a few minutes before we entered what is considered by most to be the hardest scenario ending in the entire game. Before Rita can arrive, the dead break through the RPD's front gates, creating a frantic final stand that was so precise that any mistake could be the last one we made. It was so precise, in fact, that it even came down to using the right weapons at the right time, reloading only at specific moments, and requiring pinpoint inventory management. Oh, good, okay, so it's not anything major then. Because we can't just put items anywhere, we have to make sure that ammo, weapons, and healing items are strategically swapped out with existing ones around the front gate. There's also a number of additional items that exclusively spawn in during this preparation phase that we need to collect for the end game, starting back on the roof where there's a shotgun, an SMG mag, handgun ammo, and photo roll B. Using the main hall's computer, we can also open up the garage ramp to find more ammo and the SMG itself before heading back to the Daily Bugle with pictures of Hillary Clinton that we can trade for a Magnum. With our endgame inventory collected, ammo and supplies positioned, and weapons loaded, there was nothing more to do except wait.
Oh my god. This is so scuffed. God, my virus gauge. Holy shit. No.
In what was a blow for us and feminism worldwide, Cindy dying now meant I had successfully murdered the entire Outbreak female roster and officially brought our remaining survivors to the halfway point. With only 4 lives remaining, in a breathtaking act of irony, I myself was now finding these times desperate. The times had in fact become so desperate that we'd resorted to calling in a plumber to help fix our rapidly leaking odds of completing this challenge. David King, suspected racist and professional aura farmer, was a man who lived by the sole principle that if you could dodge a wrench, then you probably weren't a zombie. Entering the RPD with big high heels to fill, David planned to fill them with illegally modified weapons and homemade pipe bombs, constructed from the finest materials that his toolkit had to offer. Alongside his higher tier stats, there was a feeling that all of this combined together could just be enough to sway the outcome of this final fight back into our favor. Just moments before my fist entered the drywall at 45 miles per hour, Rita finally arrived, committing felony hit and run and allowing us to jump into the safety of a cutscene, finally closing out the living hell that was entering a police station as a civilian. Marvin, in a breathtaking act of self-sacrifice, stays behind in the RPD for continuity purposes. I suppose someone did have to stay behind to greet the new recruits. Underbelly takes us into the hobo encampment that was the Raccoon City Underground and is a very unique scenario in the sense that it's actually a prequel level because this is just what going through the subway looks like during rush hour. The level starts us over on the East Side ticket office and follows our attempts to escape the subway system by restoring a train currently not working down on the platform. Holy shit, this actually is a prequel level. After breaking down the door to the employee backrooms, we find a group of shambling zombies who, actually based on the state of the UK rail service, could actually just be working. But apart from them, and perhaps more importantly, we also find a lead on fixing our train inside the control room. Fully funded by the Raccoon City taxpayer, the Federal Rail Administration had apparently signed off on a locking mechanism for all the carriages that would only release if 2 emblems were inserted into the carriage connector, which was a subtle reference to the fact that all of Raccoon City's local government officials are mentally ill. Our train currently has no emblems, so the search was on for where these could be hidden. After the disappointing realization that the tracks weren't live, we instead explored the connecting tunnel, finding a password for a locker in the staff room that had a key inside that we could use to unlock the door to basement level 2. But there was more to this staff room than meets the eye. Enjoying one of my favourite pastimes of vigorously examining the women's bathroom over on the West Wing, we spot this. What could this be? An excuse perhaps because David can't actually read, just another standard RE prompt? Or was it something more? Well, by using David's lighter, we can actually illuminate the cubicle and find a secret hidden message. Oh wait, sorry, it's a bit lower. There were only 2 answers to what this could be. It was either solicitation for prostitution, or it was a treasure hunt. Sadly, it's the latter, as following the message over to the opposite bathroom, we get another clue that leads us downstairs to the platform and a final message that brings us full circle back to the staff room bunk beds where we find a shotgun. A staple that no American subway worker should be going to work without, and for us, it was also something we couldn't head down to B2 without either. Downstairs, a broken pipe in the pump room has flooded the entire lower floor of the basement. After closing off the mains power so we don't tase ourselves, we now have the opportunity to do the one thing David was built for. Plumb. But the toxic work environment that's been brewed down here in the dark like the goblins of Moria relentlessly forces zombies into the pump room to interrupt our professional plumbing duty, so the shotgun becomes an almost necessary tool to completing the job down here without being killed. Instead of having to go back upstairs and sort through the storage supply cupboard like some kind of normie, David can actually summon the ghost of Phil Swift and slap on some flex tape from his tool bag to immediately seal the pipe and completely finish our work down in B2 earlier than any other survivor. David, I'm gonna be real with you. That looks like complete dog shit. Leaving the pump room, the freshly drained hallway reveals one of the emblems we needed and puts us on track for an unprecedented 2-level run with David. After restoring power to the subway, a shocking discovery revealed that the entire day-to-day operation of the subway is now being run by a group of large hyper-intelligent ticks called Gigabytes, who are here to make sure that the trains run on time. Oh, and also give you Lyme disease. Sadly, the authoritarian rule of the ticks down here just results in the 7 connection to 5th Avenue combusting on the platform. Hey, speaking of which, does this mean I get a refund for this ticket? In an unbelievable level of detail, this 2-decade-old game perfectly simulated what it was like to try and get through the London Underground in 35-degree heat. But having already fixed the pipe downstairs and remembered to turn the water back on, the sprinkler system quickly extinguishes the train and reveals the second emblem we needed to decouple our way out of here. After being human trafficked back into the subway, the Tick's general manager was the last hurdle we needed to get through in order to make it out of here alive. Unfortunately for the Ticks though, this pest spray we'd found downstairs doesn't specify a size for the insect it's for, so with just 9 sprays you can kill the boss in just 1 cycle. That is, if you weren't interrupted mid-fight by unforeseen environmental factors. For us though, we have to do a little bit more Molotoving to escape the boss arena, but once back on the platform with no more interruptions, we can finally start the train and leave behind the crippling horror that was taking public transport for good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 5 o'clock service from Redstone Street Station. Your next stop on this line is going to be the Raccoon City Zoo. If you were looking for a day out that was fun for all the family, then look no further than Raccoon City Zoo. Here, children are actively encouraged to be fed to the animals, whilst you, the parent, can enjoy a drink at the local watering hole. Wild Things was basically a Rick and Morty episode. On the other side of the zoo was a tram system that we could use to escape this city, and all we needed to do was to take a quick adventure, 20 minutes, in and out, through the zoo, and we'd be home free.
Fuck.
Starting the level with Cindy outside Elephant McDonald's, we have to either unlock these gates using a code found inside the restaurant or open it like an alpha male using a pair of bolt cutters that were made before Capcom discovered the color red. Once inside the zoo, John Hammond welcomes us to Jurassic Park by immediately crushing Cindy to death and causing her to dump her entire inventory out into the street like this was Minecraft. Meet Oscar the elephant. Once the pride and joy of the Raccoon City Zoo, his days of promoting overpriced NFTs to children in the gift shop were now over, allowing him to spend his days patrolling this level in a permanent T-virus K-hole and giving visitors long-term back pain. Heading through the service road to explore the rest of the zoo, it was clear that the USP of this place was fucking never being able to leave it. With a business model that focused on having no repeat business, the exit gates in the main plaza are shut and can only be opened by inserting 2 lion emblems into these 2 statues here. The emblems themselves are locked away in the admin office and require no less than 12 Mr. Raccoon medals hidden throughout the zoo to be found, collected, and deposited back here in order to access them. What the fuck is going on here? Has this zoo been designed by Ambiguous Amphibian? Our journey of emotional distress begins inside the plaza itself, where, like most Outbreak endings, we need to secure the endgame plaza for item storage and ease of access for later. Borrowing a shotgun from the gift shop, we group the 2 lionesses up together in this corner so that we can get double the amount of damage from our recession levels of ammo before finding our first medal and the admin password that would get us onto the zoo's Wi-Fi back in the central office. Taking a shortcut back through this hole in the fence, we collect another 2 medals before experiencing more unresolved RE5 trauma.
Oh no.
Somehow managing to Steve Irwin my way across the lake mid-panic attack, we find ourselves inside the O2 arena, except I'm just poisoned all the time. We cut through here and arrive at the elephant stage on the other side of the dome. Oh yeah, I can see why they call it that. Here we find the administration office key that we can take through to the North Concourse to unlock the central office building.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. That's hilarious!
With Dino Crisis PTSD now gripping the office, we can finally access the main desk to deposit our 3 medals before finding another 2 around the office itself, reducing our endgame debt to just 7. With the power successfully restored, we had now opened up additional search options deeper inside the zoo, with the first stop being back in the dome to, you guessed it, get instantly poisoned again.
I'm gonna freak out.
Committing some kind of B Hiroshima, we get access to another medal below, but now we can also turn on each of the 3 infographic panels in here to open up a hidden compartment behind this sign, giving us a second medal and a single hunting rifle round, which we'd need for later if we wanted to get past the clever little girls waiting for us outside the tram.
Oh my god. Oh my god! Oh my fuck!
With enough poison in our bloodstream to be classed as a walking biological hazard, we find 1 more medal lying on the sidewalk next to Cindy's open grave and another 2 inside the service road itself. Finding a black market stockpile of ammunition under this pallet inside animal boarding, we find our penultimate medal in the stage area and our final one hanging 20 feet in the air inside this guy's pocket. To kill 2 elephant-sized problems with 1 gate, we can lock Oscar inside the stage area and leave him in a state of paralysis by playing a tape with the worst kind of brain rot imaginable on loop. With the zoo now certified as elephant-free, the doors being shut also drops our final medal down to the floor, which we collect just in time because I'm starting to get very itchy and very tasty. With the final medal dropped off at the admin office, both emblems are collected from the paintings and ferried over to the plaza where the gates to the exit are finally opened. Now, locking Oscar in the stage area also fundamentally changes the final boss fight of the level. Usually he'd break through the plaza gate to take up the mantle of the scenario's final boss, but with him currently stuck in elephant conversion therapy, according to my online research of one Reddit post from 2010, we'd set up a drastically easier fight with the remaining lions that we hadn't yet driven to extinction. But what I've come to realise is that the moment you become complacent in this challenge, or fail to properly conduct your own research online, is the moment that your run can dramatically become the endangered species.
Oh my fuck!
Whoever said this was the easier fight, you're a liar. And I've crashed the game.
At this point, it felt like the break in Outbreak was like a subliminal reference to the fact that I'm about one more final boss fight death away from outbreaking my desk. I think at this point it's safe to say that this is a skill issue, but no amount of gaslighting could change the fact that I'd thrown yet another chance of securing a level's completion and a character's survival. Quite frankly, steering wasn't even a viable term for what this was anymore. The car had crashed, the insurance claim had been denied, and I'd been banned from driving for 12 months. But just as we were about to enter Challenge Run Insolvency, around the same time I wondered, wow, this is really going to be underwhelming to write about. We were gifted what can only be described as generational Outbreak wealth. This is Kevin Ryman, co-founder of Ryman's High Street Stationery and Office Supplies. He is widely recognised as Outbreak Jesus. His stats were the full package. He was fast, had plenty of health, and his special abilities are the best in class for solo combat. Being a police officer, Kevin was able to engage meaningfully with the local community by kicking people in the face, which is actually able to hold enemies back for the perfect amount of time to set up his potshot ability and produce a perfect high damage dealing combo. The real secret sauce though is Kevin's special weapon. Dealing higher damage than a standard pistol but slightly lower than a Magnum, when using the 45 with Kevin's potshot ability, this thing shreds enemies and bosses alike, making it the perfect endgame weapon. Dare I say it, but it's almost like Kevin was made for this challenge. Approaching the end of the scenario, if Kevin died, so help me God, I would have put myself through the very foundations of my house. So to safeguard my own well-being and my mortgage, I decided to sub in the elephant again in the hopes that avoiding another 3v1 would help to create a more calmer work environment. We also have a piece of leverage over the elephant that we don't have over the lion, which is its severely repressed trauma. Using blank cassettes that I'd found lying around the zoo, we can copy over the playlist from the stage area and force Oscar to listen to them using cassette players found at either end of the street. These advanced CIA interrogation techniques send Oscar into a crazed frenzy, causing him to take a huge amount of damage from running headfirst into the pretzel stand before his AI blue screens at the other end of the street, leaving us to wipe the tears from our eyes as we're forced to humanely put him down. As endings go, this had not been animal friendly, Homo sapiens included, but finally making it onto the tram, it felt like our increasingly desperate calls for help had finally been answered, and even though no character was guaranteed to make it through any of the remaining 4 levels, it felt like with Kevin at the head of the challenge, there was still hope. A warm greeting from inside the American healthcare system, where zombie bites are only the second leading cause of death in the city behind denied insurance claims. Raccoon City Hospital was currently being staffed by only 2 doctors. One who'd had his medical license revoked for doing gymnastics off the X-ray machine, and another who was adamant that every condition could be treated with the healing power of leeches and being punched in the face. Following us around the hospital as our designated stalker for the level, the T-virus infected leeches were using human hosts like Ubers to hunt us through the air conditioning, which was one of those rare times where not having friends actually works to our advantage. With no former teammates joining the Leechman's army, with the hospital's backup generator now running, we can use the lift to begin exploring the rest of the hospital. To escape this unregulated nightmare, we'd need to gain access to basement level 2, where we could escape the hospital via a connecting sewer on an actual boat that presumably hospital staff had been using to commute into work on. A critical part of this process was solving our Leechman problem, but to do that we needed to find a code for the downstairs security system that would unlock elevator access to basement level 2. The security code we needed had to be deciphered via 2 memos, one downstairs in the first floor admin office and another here in the second floor nurses station. With my carotid artery now severed, the bleed status effect is the most dangerous in the entire game. With every enemy having a percentage chance to cause a bleed, except the Leechman, who is slightly higher at 4000%, if successfully applied, our movement speed is reduced down to danger regardless of our current health, and whilst we can usually just hide somewhere and wait a few minutes for it to resolve itself, this position leaves us vulnerable. Largely more vulnerable to a bleed on my actual brain, because every time my platelets had finished doing their work and I set foot outside to leave...
Great, I'm in bleed again, you piece of shit!
After spending a non-negligible amount of time hiding in this cupboard waiting for my blood to clot again, we opt to throw a random bag of unknown blood out into the hallway to keep the Leechman occupied so we can finally make it back up to the first floor again. In the security room, we can unlock the shutter system to connect a route through to the examination room, picking up a level 1 keycard on the table and the other half to B2 security code in the adjoining office. Now with both documents in hand, if you thought that Carmine was a large family deeply rooted in the coalition of ordered governments, then you were now essentially soft-locked. But if you can read using a physical version of ChatGPT called a dictionary, Carmine is a shade of red, meaning all we had to do was add the value of Carmine from the chemical code memo to 2345, which gives us the code to basement level 2. Once typed in on the security terminal, we quickly use the level 1 keycard to unlock the door at the end of the corridor and access the waste disposal area, where we can find a key that we'll use to unlock the Bose padlock down on basement level 2. Speaking of basement level 2, with it now being accessible, we could finally deal with our Leechman problem by luring him down into the basement's fixed temperature control room and forcibly giving him accelerated skin cancer. After the shocking revelation that the Leechman was none other than Dr. Brexit from earlier, we borrow his level 2 keycard from his weirdly wet pocket to unlock the door down the corridor to finally get access to the boat mooring and the sewer motorway. But the drive down the pipe reveals a toll bridge in the form of the fattest berg I have ever seen, and having no money, we're forced to park our boat up and speak directly with the manager. Kevin's police work indicated that there had been a murder here, the murder being the absolutely embarrassing way this boss had just been dismantled. But as we waded through the waist-high cooking oil-used condoms and an unusual amount of diarrhea, it got me thinking that maybe the real leeches were the insurance companies that we made along the way. Below freezing point takes us on a trip down memory lane as we arrive back in this same underground lab from OGRE2 to handle a group of Umbrella employees looting the facility for bioweapons like this was a fucking Walmart. We start the level alongside Yoko, wondering just how far Umbrella dug into the bedrock to build this underground metropolis and why they insisted on building it with the same power grid as Texas. With no power, the security doors are all disengaged, allowing us to enter the lab and reunite with one of Yoko's old work buddies, Monica, who was apparently on her way to leak this bioweapon on the War Thunder Discord. With no keycard, Yoko was less than useless to us, so we say goodbye and head up to basement level 6 to find another way of opening up the restricted areas of the lab. Inside 6, everything is freezing in here, possibly even a touch below freezing, and had caused much of the lab to stop working, which for some reason also included this wrench. My fucking god, this really is Texas. Once in the main security office though, we can make a quick detour to the staff room to thaw the wrench out with some hot water, which, now usable, can unlock one of these cabinets to access the emergency valve handles. This handle is what will get us up to B5 and 4 by lowering this emergency ladder in the maintenance ducts, but the mechanism to lower it is blocked by dense, thick vines connected to Plant 69. Unfamiliar with the plant's game, to get to the upper levels of the lab, we'd need to deal with 50 Shades of Green here, which I think is exactly what it wanted. After being punched down into basement level 7, we conveniently land in chemical storage, where at either end of the floor there are 2 rooms that house the different chemicals we'd need to produce the plant anthrax known as VJOL. We also find Yoko down here, who'd not been left alone for even 10 seconds before immediately dying, but I guess being an Umbrella employee...
I'll tell you what you get! Call the police! Get what you fucking deserve!
Now with weapons of plant-based destruction in hand, throwing the VJOL onto the plant gives us a cutscene that should... Whilst we waited an uncomfortable amount of time for the plant to finish blowing its load, we softened our usual stance of issuing out the death penalty to Umbrella employees, as we're bribed into providing this guy with a first aid spray, receiving 5 bottles of ammonium nitrate in return for our act of charity. Now with access to the upper lab, Monica was finding out that the more you fucked around, the more you found out, as electric pressure was now the least of her worries. With the turntable mechanism frozen, it wouldn't turn, making it just a table, so evidently the next problem to solve was the temperature situation, but as we entered B4, it was clear that unfreezing the lab would also bring with it certain unwanted consequences. For now though, we make our way across B4's main shaft, dodging past a Venomoth that had crossed over the Nuzlocke multiverse, clearly disturbed by the fact that I'd gone one entire level without being poisoned. Finding the keycard we needed outside the turntable, we can now access the computer room down on basement level 5 to program our credentials onto it and print ourselves off a visitor's badge, which would then get us into the culture room back up on basement level 4. With global warming already accelerating the hunters' return from their cryogenic holiday, we quickly borrow this blowtorch to creme brulee the frozen thermostat and restore the air conditioning to a reasonable temperature, melting the remaining ice throughout the facility and officially rebranding this level to above melting blunt. Like ancient bacteria melting out of the permafrost, here in the lab every disgusting organism was now awake and trying to kill us, but by returning to the turntable we can start the lift mechanism and just wait patiently for our ascent to the surface to begin. 3 minutes and 1 second later, Monica suffers a fate worse than death, watching the train you were trying to catch leave just as you got to the platform. But then also suffers from death as well. Evidently, as Monica popped out a beautiful baby G-child, the mysterious creature she'd encountered down here was Birkin and his weird breeding fetish, which unfortunately now impacted us as his child punches through the floor in the marshalling yard and begins growing into a G teenager, which was probably the worst phase of the G organism life cycle. But luckily for Kevin, dysfunctional children with daddy issues was his speciality. Once again managing to supplement my terrible gameplay with his overpowered skill set, Kevin had now secured his 3rd win of the series, defying all odds to put us within only 2 levels of challenge run success. Flashback takes us up into the Arklay Mountains, where the reports of people being literally eaten alive like this was Slough hadn't deterred anybody from coming up here looking for safety. We join Kevin and Alyssa looking for a way to euthanize themselves inside this random Airbnb, but are interrupted just as the owner arrives to help us with check-in. Kevin's police instinct indicated that any man wearing a fit like that had about a 95% chance of being a paedophile, but he extends us an olive branch by offering to take us through the forest to a neighbouring town, and pinky promises not to murder us on the way. Heading out into the forest, despite this not being an open world game, I am immediately lost. The directions are vague, and the forest is infested with a new variation of zombie called the green zombie. Siri, give me a more creative name for the plant-based zombies in Outbreak.
Sure, your nearest Starbucks is on Oxford Street. Would you like me to get directions for you?
Okay, forget it. By combining the T-virus with that potato you forgot about in your downstairs pantry cupboard, these Venusaur zombies have developed a taste for humans. But any act of self-defense against them is considered illegal and is punishable by having a cloud of poison thrown into your face. Spending about 15 minutes running around in circles, we find that the molesting had been escalated to murdering, and also completely ruined the RE9 plot. What the hell are we supposed to say to Grace now? Finding my way out of the forest by complete accident, we head over this certified unsafe bridge and into the local NHS hospital, where we find Mo, who's now exclusively taken on the persona of Patrick Bateman and has forced us to join his weird cosplay by taking on the role of Paul Allen. Because we thought Huey Lewis in the News' early work was a little too new wave for our taste, the Axeman and his weirdly erect nipples chase us throughout the hospital in an attempt to convince us that Hip to Be Square is a masterpiece. Escaping down to the basement inside the ICU, we find another huge plant that could potentially strain my ability to write plant-based innuendos, but was currently dormant. The plant, however, has grown throughout the entire hospital, blocking off large parts of the level with its huge vines. But according to a note written by the local botanist, a certain green acidic type substance can be used to destroy these vines to clear a path through the hospital. In our search for the mysterious green goo, we lose our zombie pursuers by going through this door in the East Wing's reception so many times I wasn't even sure I was in the same hospital anymore. Wait. What the fuck? Eventually finding my bearings again, we find a sample of the chemical inside this drawer, which performs as advertised by destroying this vine in the basement as well as the entire local ecosystem. Now able to access the pharmacy, we get an unlimited supply of this chemical and the key for the administration office upstairs, which was a good opportunity to progress the plot as the bridge we took over to get here finally fails its health and safety test, leaving us trapped in the hospital. And also Alyssa trapped in the forest. Hey, Grace, come in, take a seat. So yeah, look, I know your mum died in a garden centre, but dude, what are you fucking talking about? Using the green goo to make the second floor corridor accessible for people with legs, we use the lighter found next door to illuminate this dark area outside the elevator, where we can find 1 hidden message is an anomaly, 2 is a pattern. Apart from Mrs. Ryman's mobile number, we also find a rusty old key, which along with the one from the admin office unlocks this switch to open a secret exit out to the auxiliary building's roof. After contracting asbestos poisoning next to this hole in the floor, we can find a key that we can use to unlock access to the north side of this rooftop, as well as, hidden amongst the foliage, the key to getting unlimited reservations at Dorsia. Unlocking the door through to the opposite side of the roof, we can head straight to the top of the hospital to quickly return some videotapes, before using the final syringe to commit vegan terrorism and destroy the plant's only means of production. Oh, fucking hell, not again. With the devs evidently mistaking the X in exotic plants for an R, our actions here are sadly not a victimless crime. Because I am the victim of false imprisonment, as the plant refuses to let us leave through to the end of the level, which in the simplest terms was not in its best interest to do. I am now coming downstairs and I am going to murder you. Inside the ICU, the only thing getting intensively cared for in here was my face, as every hit we make into the plant's soft center was causing part of the ceiling to cave in, specifically into me. Now experiencing full-blown CTE, we can offset its effects by using any of the 95 health items we'd preemptively stored down here specifically for this fight, helping to ensure that no matter how many times we got asphyxiated, our health remained topped up. With enough damage done, the plant admits defeat and ejects out the perfectly preserved body of Margaret Thatcher. I should have known you were behind this. As its vines withered away, the exit gates were now freed, and with one final traumatic brain injury, we walked out into the forest, a free man, reflecting on the fact that Kevin had nearly single-handedly completed an entire Outbreak game by himself, but also that now, 15 hours later, the only thing that now stood between us and beating this challenge was the home of wisdom, truths, and tyrants. Decisions takes us up to Raccoon City University, where the Supreme Court have ruled that being a zombie makes you ineligible to have your student loans forgiven, and the only STEM subject taught here is advanced human rights abuse. We begin the level with George, who immediately goes off into the university campus to sniff out the faculty's Adderall supply, leaving us to formulate a plan to escape the main hall all by ourselves. To do so, we need to complete 2 tasks, finding 2 coloured gems to place inside this moose's head and an admin code needed to unlock the staff elevator next door. We can find one half of the lift's code next to this health and safety nightmare, and one of the gems upstairs where in the president's room a cord can be pulled from inside the fireplace to lower this statue next door. For the red gem, we have to head into the Student Affairs office and decipher the faculty's secret code, which, like a bunch of smooth brains, is just numbers written in outlines of other numbers. With both gems now in place, we can enter the basement study where we can search through the assorted Twinkie wrappers and bodily fluids on the desk to find 2 notes, one that completes the admin code required for the lift and another that gives us detailed instructions on how to create synthetic crack cocaine. According to the note, daylight was the homemade cure for the T-virus, except cure was probably a stretch when it came to marketing laws. It can literally only cure the 8 canon protagonist because any zombie that comes into contact with this thing instantly ODs, but I'm not here to concern myself with something as obsolete as ethics. With the lift now accessible, we get access to 3 additional floors throughout the university, all correlating to an ingredient that we'd need to find to synthesize daylight and remove our T-virus STD gauge permanently. Our first stop on the quest for Umbrella's 7 herbs and spices was on basement level 2, where we find George in a Class A through C K-hole and the university's private pier, where you can enjoy the best view of the entire game at the cost of being demoted into the food chain.
This game's gonna give me a heart attack.
So, making a categorical promise to never enter a deep body of water again, we enjoy our limited edition cameo cutscene from Nikolai, who observes the newest ultimate weapon commit the ultimate sin of murder. Now inside the square ourselves, the keycard we'd found on the pier gets us back inside the university, where climbing down this manhole on basement level 2 gets us into the sewer backrooms, a network of tunnels and passageways below the university that led to the water purification facility. As facilities go, this one seemed pretty useless, especially considering everyone in the city had been poisoned by lead water, a situation that was probably being exacerbated by the fact that I was using this place as a water park and other more unsanitary creatures were using it as a toilet. Inside the facility, we receive RE3 nostalgia slapped directly into our eyes as the Hunter-Gammas make a return to the series. Outside of their tanks, we can find a key with a red tag on that opens up a passageway inside the Waterworks management office. Here we find the P-Base machine that would generate a sample of the compound we needed, but every container here had the integrity of an old piece of Tupperware, causing the sample to evaporate as soon as we left the room. So after releasing the electronic locking mechanism for the doors in the quality assurance tunnel, we can begin our search for a suitable airtight container, but it was here on the way back that a terrible miscalculation had been made. Something that I didn't even know was possible. The Gammas cannot die. Likely due to their exposure to Michael Phelps' DNA, not only were they extremely impressive at the breaststroke, but they regenerate health, meaning that on my route back over, the 3 resurrected Gammas had been waiting here to ambush me on my return journey, dragging me down inside this septic tank in an act of betrayal that I'd never seen coming.
Oh my god, what the fuck? He's actually finessed me. Oh my god. He got stuck on the corner and I dived to dodge him.
This entire time, I'd imagined Kevin celebrating with the rest of the team, reflecting on what a fairy tale story he'd made, practically rescuing this challenge from the brink of defeat and single-handedly making all of this possible. Instead of victory celebrations, he was now being slowly digested inside a giant frog's stomach, lost forever. The harsh reality that we all needed to accept was that Kevin was gone, and he wasn't coming back. For the remaining 2 survivors, though, there was now no room for error. Meet Mark, a Vietnam War veteran with chronic PTSD who'd naturally been immediately given a gun and hired by Costco as shop floor security to shoot people trying to steal the rotisserie chickens. Mark was the offensive tank of the group, able to block inbound damage and break metal pipes across the heads of former students. He was an absolute melee monster. Apart from a disgracefully insensitive moment of in-game fat shaming, Mark's path through to Kevin's resting place remained largely unchanged. This time though, we head into the water purification facility through the open manhole in the main square, collecting the key and dodging around the hunters immediately after they spawn in instead of fighting them. This way, when we come to make that slow return trip across the facility, by turning the gammas over to the French at this point, we maximise the amount of time we have to make the trip before they regenerated. Now inside water quality assurance, the adjoining facility gives us exactly what we needed. A sealed airtight container that we could use to collect a sample of the P-base and close off our time here in B3. Now, watch this dive.
Oh shit.
With the P-base secured, our search for the other ingredients somehow takes us deeper into the Earth's crust, where every building in the city was apparently built like a reverse skyscraper. Down inside basement level 4, we find an abandoned subway system whose entire societal structure was based on how much arachnophobia it could give you. Finding a facility underneath the emissions tower, Mark overcomes crippling body dysmorphia to somehow fit inside a vent the size of a microwave and reach the generator room to input another chronically insane sequence of numbers that made me want to... Oh, it's done. Able to access the door that says do not enter because we can't read, we arrive at the base of the emissions tower where, with power restored, we can use the lift to enjoy a relaxing and stress-free journey up to the surface.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
Finding that the wasps are now officially living inside our walls, they've left conveniently pre-bottled wasp milk that we can harvest into a sample of the V poison, taking us to within one step of creating umbrella fox dye. All that remained now was a sample of T-virus infected blood, but with our own blood deemed unsuitable due to a clash with the game's predetermined plotline, we'd have to source an alternative sample from this guy. I'm just gonna go back. Thanatos was a limited edition tyrant named after the god of peaceful natural death, which was ironic because his USP was making sure that our death was the most violent and unnatural as possible. Conventional weaponry was useless on him, which was convenient because I didn't have any conventional bullets, but luckily the university's outstanding OSHA violation temporarily stuns our pursuer, allowing us to retrieve the sample of blood Nikolai had been trying to collect earlier. Sprinting at Mark 5 speed to the elevator door, we make it just in time, arriving up on the 3rd floor to begin synthesizing the vaccine. Jesus Christ, I've seen more stable power systems in Chernobyl. With the power cutting out again, it does also release the locking mechanism for the adjoining door, revealing that one man's bioweapon is another man's beef jerky.
My apologies for this place being so hectic. I have been monitoring...
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick question regarding next door. Have you been drying out hunters to make beef jerky? Feeling surprisingly better now that my social battery wasn't being depleted against my will, our moment of peaceful reflection is interrupted prematurely by Nikolai, who's planted explosives throughout the university campus. I wasn't even sure he was getting paid for any of this, he seemed to be just doing it for the love of the game, but the addition of an ominous on-screen timer added a sense of urgency to escape, which was exactly what the game was trying to make you do. In some kind of elaborate Medicaid scam, this psychological trick of making us rush and escape the university would cause us to forget that the vaccine was just moments away from being synthesized next door, so instead we restore power using Greg's computer so we can begin mass producing daylight at will. There was no evidence to say that this vaccine wouldn't give me autism. Again. But the made-up risk outweighed the reward of finally being able to scrub the virus from our body. With the T-virus officially purged, we grab a few more bottles of daylight for the freezer at home before taking a quick shortcut back through the president's room and outrunning Thanatos all the way back out to the main square. With the university destroyed and Thanatos with it, the RFD notices the explosion from their helicopter and offer us a ride up ahead, bringing us to within touching distance of the end of the challenge.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
With Thanatos now becoming Thanos whilst being weakened from the explosion, his remaining Mr. Fantastic arm could still hit us from 2 postcodes away. In a rare act of self-discipline, however, the university had followed munitions safety regulation by storing their emergency rocket launcher in this random locker outside, which for us was very convenient.
What? I'm legit losing my mind here. What do I even do? Oh, God. I can't. I'm actually going to blow a blood vessel. At this point, just kill me, man. I can't. I have to edit all of that out and just pretend that I made it to the end of the game.
This was a disaster of proportions never before seen on this channel. It was a familiar story. Much like the Outbreak characters, my special ability appeared to be choking these attempts at the very last minute. But this wasn't a time where you could afford these kind of mistakes. The entire success of the challenge now rested on one man, one final chance to compete for Outbreak success. This is Jim, Raccoon City's only surviving subway worker who, according to the wiki, has a complete lack of moral fibre, and actual fibre, as the sight of any enemy will cause Jim to immediately shit himself. Jim's stats are below average, but his character brings with it some of the most unique gameplay mechanics in the entire game. Like Harvey Two-Face, but he works in public transport, Jim has a coin that he can flip, but instead of deciding someone's fate, it gives him a 15% boost to his critical hit rate, which then allows him to decide their fate by blowing their face off. Insanely, this bonus isn't capped, so you can stack it all the way up to 100% with consecutive heads, but any tails and the bonus resets to 0. And it doesn't stop there, because Jim's special ability is where this gets even more insane. A skill perfected from suing local businesses for personal injury that was 100% his fault, Jim can play dead on command, dropping to the floor and causing any enemy in the vicinity to completely ignore him. Able to worm his way through entire sections of a level, damage becomes an almost extinct concept, but there is a trade-off. Jim's ability was like having adamantium poisoning. Using it accelerated our infection rate to stage 7 for every frame that we spent on the floor. And with Jim having the fastest base infection rate in the entire game, if we abused it, we'd quickly find ourselves out of time. At least that would be the case for someone who didn't have access to the Pfizer production line upstairs, so I guess cue the worming montage.
Okay.
After an hour and 20 minutes of gameplay that looked like those Ring doorbell fail compilations, we made it all the way back to our PB, but this time I wasn't taking any chances. In the same way that I prepare for having to drive through Birmingham, I ditched my healing item for a fully loaded M4 to act as my failsafe, just in case I somehow managed to repeat the once-in-a-lifetime rocket miss. Jesus Christ, thank God. It almost didn't feel real that the challenge had finally come to an end, which was a display of good instincts because it wasn't the end. Usually this kind of unlicensed, unscheduled rematch would have me feeling concerned, but on this particular occasion, Capcom had provided us with a suitable checkmate. As per the laws of bioweapon nature, the Tyrant is at a cellular level made up of the T-virus, meaning the spare daylight we'd brought with us from the university can be loaded into this capsule shooter we find in the arena to euthanize him immediately with what looked like 4,500 rads of ionized radiation. Finally though, with the RFD picking us up with the same promptness as Brad Vickers, the Outbreak Nuzlocke was finally brought to an end. But with RE9 just around the corner, is anything ever truly over?
No. No way.
See? Never a dull moment. Now, let's finish this like men.